the results are good. We are on level points with Liverpool for fifth, but they've got us by a pretty good margin on goal difference.
Well, and they have a game in hand.
Yeah, and the game in hand. 1 point ahead of next week's opposition in Southampton, which we talked about. So let's talk about predictions for that match. I'm going to go out and say 2-1. I think we can go ahead and take that 2-1. There's something deep inside of me that says 1-1 draw, and it has a draw written all over it, because that the form that both teams are in when you watch them both play, and I watch Southampton play a lot, we look identical. The teams look identical in their form. Mane's speed scares the crap out of me, though, especially if Fazio is still back at center back. He will get burned and ripped to shreds by Mane and Pella's no slouch himself. So those are the two that really worry me. But I think that if all things remain the same, I'm going to say 2-1 to the good guys, but a gut feeling of a 1-1 draw.
Well, Pella's in a scoring slump, and
which means he'll bag a brace against us.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure they're licking their wounds and regretting their missed chances yesterday, being a goal up at Stoke and ended up losing it, which is obviously good for us if we want to get above them. Before today's match, and again, tell the two halves, and you put that on the piggyback of the last four performances, and we said it last week, United, Leicester City, you got to lump those in there, not great performances. You could argue 4 of these last 5 games are now a lot tougher than we would have predicted probably back in February. Stoke away is never easy, and I know we won there the last few seasons. Everton are suddenly finding their form, although they made very hard work of beating 10-man Burnley yesterday. But Lennon seems to be enjoying a nice kind of new spell up there. He won the penalty yesterday. He scored a couple of goals in recent weeks. And, of course, City is never a good proposition based on how we did against them in the last 3 matches. So, and the whole game, as much as we will all be there for it, they're now sucked into the relegation fight. Yeah. So, there are 5 tough games. I really am not sure what to predict for next week, but I think we should be happy with the draw. We've mentioned it was a bit heavy going today in the first half, and we kind of turned it on in the second half. Definitely a much more inspired second half performance. If we play like that, the balance of these 5 games, then who knows what can happen. And we've been pretty good on the road, and I think if you put us in our yellow strip, we've done pretty well in that.
Yeah, the Tweety Bird, I like it.
So we'll see.
All right, well, let's segue into something here. Last week we kind of talked about Martin Cloake and Adam Powley. They had written a book, and Simon was delivering a couple of excerpts from We Are Tottenham, The Voices from White Hart Lane, which is basically a bunch of, it's like excerpts and memoir type information from the fan base that Martin and Adam went out and got. And Simon's going to do one of his book reviews on that. So, Simon, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I finished off the book a couple of days ago, and as I alluded to last week, this was written during the season when Glenn Hoddle left the club, and it was not a good season. David Pleat took over as caretaker manager, and the story in the book goes through the whole season, the highs and the lows, and it brings back vivid memories. I believe that was a season, for some obscure reason, we ended up a lot on Fox Soccer, whether it was because they just didn't know what kind of game they would get. If you cast your mind back, I think, to the January and February, that was the FA Cup debacle against Manchester City when we were 3-0 up, and they got reduced to 10 men when Joey Barton got sent off at half-time. We ended up losing that 4-3. We had the 4-4 draw with Leicester, a 4-3 win with Everton, and I think also a very similar result with Portsmouth. And it was sheer heart attack, Spursy Tottenham performances week in, week out, with a very ordinary set of players. And to get these fans' perspective and translated into print by Martin and Adam was very, very special to read. Guys have been following the club for forever and a day. There was one interview with the old-timer that was responsible for setting up the first ever away travel for Spurs fans. I think he did coaches for the first game. It was the Sunderland away match in the FA Cup in the double year. He also was the first one to set up away travel via aircraft to Europe. And I think the last chapter was a very young girl. I think she was 7 when she was interviewed. So very big cross section of Spurs fans, even an Arsenal fan's perspective, with lofty from EastEnders in there. And then what was really interesting, since this is the updated version of the original book, it was written, I think, in AVB's first season and Bale's final season. Adam and Martin went back to interview some of those folks to kind of get a perspective of how we had done in the last 10 years. Because if you think about it, the Glenn Hoddle era kind of gave way to kind of the dawning of this rejuvenation in Tottenham's fortunes with really Martin Yeo had laid down the groundwork once Santini left the building, and then Harry took over the reins before the last few seasons. So we did have a renaissance in our football, and we had done considerably better with our season in the Champions League and a couple of cup final appearances. So, to Ken's phrase earlier, did we get our Tottenham back? No, but we got certainly a lot better Tottenham than our fans had deserved during the 90s and the early part of the new millennium. So it's a really good read, and it's nice to get that perspective of the epilogue, so to speak, with the update on this version of the book. So I'm kind of glad I didn't read the original, and I've had the opportunity to read this one with that perspective at the end. I must admit I was, and I'd like to get Martin and Adam's perspective on this when we meet them, but I was kind of disappointed at Norman Jay's I don't want to say pessimistic view of the state of the game now, because he's probably spot on with a lot of his assessments, but he was really down on modern football and Spurs and the whole corporate commercial feel of the game. He still loves Spurs, but it's the badge and the team versus the club and the state it's in these days. So that was kind of a Debbie Downer for me, to use an American expression, man. But overall, a fantastic book. It was their first book, and I think Martin actually gave us a little shout out for mentioning it last week, so I appreciate that. But good book. If you haven't read it, fellas, get a copy off Amazon, pretty cheap. As I said, one of a kind. Yeah,
we'll make sure. Yeah, it's pretty interesting how it's printed now. For those of you that don't know, once you order this, it's printed once you order. So when you get your copy of this, and we'll put links to the Amazon store where you can purchase the book. When you get your book, it'll have the date it was manufactured and printed, and it will be the date you ordered it. It's pretty cool. So, like Simon says, it is a one of a kind once you get it because of that date stamp.
Those two are fabulous writers, and not just fabulous writers as it relates to Spurs. I mean, they're Martin can wax poetically on just a gigantic array of subjects. He's sitting down with him a few months back was amazing, and I can't wait to see those guys in May. Anything I've ever read that either of them have written either individually or combined is remarkable.
Yeah, and speaking of the book, I've ordered it, and that's what I'm going to be reading at 35,000 feet and 550 miles an hour on my way there in 2.5 weeks. Can't wait.
Really? Is that? Wow.
God. Quick.
It was like, it only seemed like yesterday you were saying
3 months.
All right. Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. Well, you're going a little earlier than us, though, right? Yeah.
I am.
Yes,
I'll be there 10 days.
That's why Simon was like, "Oh God, what is it?" Yeah, because you and I are leaving a little bit later, but
yeah. Well, you guys go back and forth a lot more than I get the opportunity to do. So
no, I'm excited for you. You're doing it right too. Well, let me give you something else to read on your trip. This will serve as my only shout out tonight.
I got like a third grade reading level, so.
Man, no. So I was in New York this weekend, and I was at the McNally Jackson bookstore in Soho, and I was just there to grab a cup of coffee, And as I was checking out, they had this magazine, and on the cover of this magazine is Gregory Vandervelde, the right back for PSG and Holland, and he's in the Dutch national shirt. This guy's got tattoos all over his body, like he's got Tutankhamun all the way up to like almost his chin. And this magazine is called The Green Soccer Journal, and it's absolutely just beautiful just to look at. This was issue number 8. It's not cheap. I get the impression they maybe do this just a small handful of times a year. It was 10 quid. They charged over $20 for it, but it is outstanding. I want to ask Adam and Martin whether they've heard about this, but it's sort of a cross between 442 and Vanity Fair and National Geographic for football. The array of topics that they write on is just, it's all over the place, from interviews of players to photo exposés of World Cups. Simon, they did this. They picked out a number of kits that they exposé, the Dortmund 95 through 97 kit, Newcastle 83, 85, and then there's a beautiful picture of the 85 through 87 Hummel kit for us, the light blue away one. It is an extraordinary magazine. So again, it is the Green Soccer Journal. They're on Twitter, and they have a cadre of amazing writers, and I think they are. Let me just get it real quick. It is at the Green SJ. So that's it for me.
Cool. I like that. I'll get them added to the shout-out list. What else we got? I did my prediction, the 2-1. You guys haven't done yours yet. Simon, what do you think about next week? Southampton.
I'm going with a draw.
Like 0-0 or 5-5?
You can't predict how many goals we'll score and cough up, but I think 2-2. We'll go 2-2 if I've got to pick a score.
Cool. Sammy?
I listen to other pods, and it's very, very rare that anybody ever says, "Oh, I think we'll lose." I don't know. I think they have a lot to play for, Southampton. I think they're at home. I think we've come, with the exception of Arsenal, we've had a number of sort of must-win situations where, to some varying degree, we've fallen short. This was Newcastle today.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm grateful for any win, especially a 3-1 win, but this was about the most uninspiring 3-1 win. It wouldn't surprise me. I'll try to be positive and err on the side of a draw with Simon, but it wouldn't surprise me, any one of those 3 results, but certainly a loss wouldn't shock me at all.
Yeah, and unlike us, Southampton is clamoring hard to get Europe. They want European football bad. So it is really going to be interesting as we get into this Southampton thing, and Man City trying to ensure that they stay afloat, because they don't want to get caught by a Liverpool or somebody like that if Liverpool hits a nice spell here to finish things out. So they're going to be wanting to play well, and they've hit a little bit of a good patch here the last couple of weeks too. So it seems like we catch these teams at all the wrong times. But Southampton, as I said earlier, they have struggled just as we have struggled.
Yeah.
And the Stoke match was a prime example of that. They're having the same problems, and it's either going to be a really, really ugly game of football to watch on Saturday, or it could be absolutely brilliant to watch. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. I think that's it. I think that's all I've got.
No.
Oh, it's not it. What do you got? Tell me.
So, cast your mind back to probably 6 pods ago, and we heard a rumor about Spurs playing the MLS All-Star game in Denver.
Yeah.
And when Poch came out and said there will be no summer tours this year, which in all respects he was probably correct, because this is just a one-off game. Well, lo and behold, it was announced, I think, on Tuesday or Wednesday, that Tottenham would indeed be the MLS All-Star game opposition, and it will be taking place in Denver on Wednesday, July the 29th. So that excited, obviously, a lot of people over here, particularly the supporters groups. And I know, being in contact with a lot of the different supporters groups across the country, we were buzzing to get up there and really wanted to know when the tickets would be on sale and which section would be allocated to the Tottenham supporters. So I believe 100 through 106 is now the away support, or the Spurs supporters, and majority of the supporters groups have allocated or have selected to go into Section 103 for anyone out there that wants to be